I'm Laura Sanko, and I am here for Room Service Diaries with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, and I am pumped to be here, man. I'm excited. I've seen this show, always wanted to be on it, so got the VIP treatment today. Hi.
You made it.
How are
nice
you?
To see you. Come on, bring it in.
You.
How are you? You know this jabroni.
I do. I always forget what
It's a pleasure
big
to
both of you are in person. Well, what I know about Luke and Brian is that they are some of the best minds in this sport.
What are you doing?
I mean, they're just good guys. They like having a good time. I have no idea what to expect from this, honestly. Even though I've watched some of the Room Service Diaries shows.
I was a little concerned about your lack of discretion.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
Man, this is nothing like what I thought it would look like.
Shittier,
Yeah, it's even sadder.
No, no. You never know. I mean, these two are a little bit of a wild card. They can take it any direction they want, and I'm game. Let's do it.
Do you have any lane changes, strategies you want to, instill before this?
No, I have absolutely zero guidance here.
Did you get the photos
I've
already?
got my Dahmer glasses.
I try to live my life a quarter mile at a
Is this
time.
the doc or is this room service? I'm just trying to figure it out.
What you're talking
Yeah,
this
it's
couch is
Do we one time? She's a fighter. She is a YouTube star. She's an analyst. She's a many things, including the first lady of the Contender series. And now she joins us in our pathetic studios for a
She's
conversation
a
about it
professional
all.
broadcaster, Luke.
Official broadcaster. It's Laura Sanko, everyone.
Swiss Army knife.
Swiss Army knife. How are you doing, Laura?
I'm doing great. You could not look any bigger than you do right now.
Yeah, they do this to me. They fuck with me here on the show, and I want them all to die. I want you all to know.
I forget how tall, but really both of you. I forget how tall both of you are.
Yeah.
Because I'm just used to seeing your little heads
Yep.
on screen.
Yeah,
but
that's my
then-
superpower, to project fat and weak on the camera and then, project tall and weak, upon...
But he's really taken over the shot. But I like it. I like it. It's your,
Yeah.
I mean, it's your show.
We are here. It's UFC 281 Fight Week. What they got you doing this week?
A little bit of everything, as usual. I've got the weigh-in show tomorrow, which that's absolutely one of my favorite things to do. I love that show. I feel like it's kind of the first time I've been able to, I don't know, let my personality loose a little bit. And then on fight night, I'll be backstage doing quick hits, which is like the kind of a social media behind the scenes interviews with the winners and celebrities and stuff like that. So
I'm a little surprised because I don't know if it's an ESPN call or a UFC call or a combo of both. And we'll talk about more of the commentary. I'm surprised they don't have you on the desk in between.
Yeah.
Have there been any discussions about that?
There have. I think I'm hopeful that that's going to be a thing. A lot of it was scheduling. So like the quick hits is an important property for them. And they really, Dana in particular, really likes me doing it. So it was a thing that he started with me in mind. And then I would love to, do the ESPN desk when I can. It's just a little conflict of schedule, but we're working around it, Luke.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, the last, I don't know how you feel about it. I feel like the last 4 years or so, they've been good years for you, right?
They have.
Would you say it's about 2018 where the worm started to turn?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Contender Series was the turning point for me. And in fact, a lot of people think that that's where I started, and it's not. Obviously, I was working the backstage Fox stuff before then for the UFC, and then of course Invicta before that. So it really wasn't my start, but the fact that most people think it is will tell you how big of a turning point it was for me.
And how's it been? Tell me how your life is different now, if you can say something like that.
It's weird. I mean, I just never. I sometimes have to sit back and pinch myself, even sitting here, honestly. Not that long ago, I was a fan at home, scheduling my entire social life around when the next pay-per-view UFC event was going to be, because they were not that frequent.
That's our lives right there.
Yeah, they were not that frequent, and you try to figure out, okay, what bar is showing it, get all my friends together. So it really is wild to see. I don't know, just to see what I've been able to carve out in the last couple of years. But sometimes it takes these moments for me to sit back and really look at it, because I'm such a what's next person.
Yeah, but you've made not just dramatic movements, which we're impressed by, and we congratulate you, because it's not an easy business to navigate. You've stuck to your guns of who you are, a fighter, somebody that understands the game. And now you're not the first female analyst in UFC history, because didn't we have one at UFC 1?
Kathy Long.
So that, that was day one, but it has been a long time.
Yeah.
You've made a leap in that direction. So, I'm not like, how does it feel to be a pioneer? But really, how does it feel to represent something a little bit bigger than just, hey, your career is going in a great direction at the moment?
It's cool. I have a hard time using that word for myself, but I always appreciate what other people do.
It's certainly pioneering work, right?
I think for people who don't understand, and you guys certainly do because you're in this business, I think for people who don't understand the very distinct lanes that exist in television, maybe they don't get how difficult it was for me to switch lanes.
Yeah, explain what that means, the lanes.
So when I say lanes, there are well-trained broadcasters that quite often, and I'll even go so far as to say most of the time when you have a female who went to broadcasting school, she'll become a reporter or a host or an anchor. And it's sort of that person has the TV chops. They are excellent at the flow of the conversation, and they usually went to school for this. And then you've got the rest of us who hopefully you're there to hear our opinion. So to take me, so that's your color commentators and your analysts, usually people who have an intimate knowledge of the sport or have something to say that people want to hear. So to go from, a reporter who very much looks like she should be a reporter to finding a way to have a voice in the sport and just trying to get people to listen to it and respect it. And I know I tell you this all the time, but I feel like I have to say it again. Like,
you don't. It's okay.
I'm gonna. Both of you guys, but you in particular, like, you were one of the first, if not the first person to publicly and outright say, wow, Laura Sanko's got smart things to say about MMA. And it wasn't just, hey, she's cute or she's got a bubbly personality or whatever. It meant so much to me when you said that. In fact, I remember laying in bed and I clipped it and I showed it to my husband and I posted it because it was a big deal. And it's taken a lot of time to get that momentum and that ball rolling, like, hey, she's not just this reporter lane, because the reporters, it's a really tough job. Like, Megan is so good at what she does.
When they time those walkouts and she nailed, I cannot. That's walking a tightrope.
Yeah,
walking a tightrope.
That's like roller skating
incredible.
and taking information down over the phone at the same time. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, she and John Anik have the hardest jobs when it comes to fight night. Megan O'Leary, John Anik, I mean, they get my applause all day long. It is an incredibly difficult job. Same thing with the desk host. It's a really tough skill set.
They're all different flexings of the muscles. But to touch on what you feel like you kind of overcame, we can't, we weren't the same journey. We're not females. It's a different, but, we're ex-reporters, non-fighters who to some degree are looked at for our analysis.
Yeah.
I call boxing fights. Luke does along with me. Luke's been one of the leading, non-fighting analysts in the game, but somebody who obviously knows his shit. So I think we can at least relate on when you finally feel like you have a little bit of credibility. Mm-hmm. It does mean more than the money, the followers, at that point when you get that credibility and you got it right away because you could do the job. But that really matters.
It does.
That's fuel.
It does. And I remember sitting next to whether it be Paul or DC or Bisping calling fights. And I would definitely have these moments in my head where I'm like, holy fucking shit, I'm calling fights with Daniel Cormier. Like, does anyone, are they sure I should be here? I know I should be there. And I know I have things to say, but there's also that there's a little bit of imposter syndrome that creeps in now and then that I really have to battle. But at the end of the day, I know that they respect me sitting there. It took a while. It took a lot of stuff like behind the scenes, getting their respect and not demanding it. You know what I mean? Like it took a long time of just sort of being one of the guys, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, it also takes time to block the haters, as Luke knows. I mean, he'll block people for looking at him the wrong way on social media.
I don't tolerate fools gladly.
Yeah,
I never will.
Yeah.
What was the turning point? Was there a moment or a thing that somebody in position of power saw that was like, okay, let's give her a shot?
This is a great story. And I have to give credit to this everything that we're talking about. I really have to give credit to Dana. And I know that makes me sound like a total homer and people already,
It makes you sound like Michael Chandler, but I get it. Okay?
Yeah, like I understand that. But so it was the first year of Contender Series, and he doesn't always wear his earbuds. In fact, he usually doesn't during Contender Series because he just wants to watch the fights and not be influenced by commentary. And for whatever reason, he threw his earbuds in, and like in the middle of the show, he got up from his spot and came in the back, and I was absolutely fucking terrified. I thought I was getting fired for some reason, because there were a couple times where when I went to announce those winners, and I'm not an announcer, didn't come out so great. So I thought it was like, we're done with you. But he came back and he just goes, you know how he is. He's like, holy fucking shit. You really know your shit. And I was like, yes, sir, thank you, I do. And he goes, literally everything. He's like, look at my notes. Literally everything I wrote down is what you asked them. And I was like, yeah, I know. I like talking about the fight, not just the storylines. He's like, I'm gonna watch you, you know. And then, I don't know if it was that week or not long thereafter, I always knew I could do more. Like, I always knew I could do more than relay information that was given to me, which is largely what being a reporter in the UFC on camera is. It's, again, very difficult, but like, I wanted to have an opinion and I wanted to have thoughts. And so I got a little bit drunk one night after the Contender Series. I was
shit.
in my room. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna DM Dana. And so I was like, hey, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, like for putting me on this show. It's been amazing. I fucking love it. And just so you know, like one day I will be the UFC's first female commentator.
Nice.
I had to have been hammered because like, who does that? I've been with your company a year and a half now. I had one professional fight in Invicta, but I was just like, fuck it, I know I can do this. And I sent it to him, and I think I immediately regretted it, but like it was like 3 o'clock in the morning and he responded. He's like, I believe you. And that was the end of the conversation.
Okay, that's a good
It wasn't
response.
like
I
know.
That's
it wasn't like a, oh yeah, we're putting you there.
Right.
But it was like, it was the perfect response.
He didn't have a laughing emoji.
No, and he didn't ignore it. And there's been several moments like that since then where he has been very much an encourager of this to happen. And I appreciate that.
I'll say this is a true story. Like, it really is fake it till you make it, to be quite honest with you. I called the very first pro show in Washington, D.C. in May of 2007, and I was working at Bloody Elbow at the time, and I remember I called the promoter just for an interview, and he was like, yeah, we don't have anyone calling, we don't have a color commentator yet. And I've never done literally zero television work, nothing.
You're like,
and I told him, yeah, I could do it. Like, I don't even know what came over me to do it. He gave me that job. He gave me the job. And then the guy who was the ring announcer was one of the morning hosts for like the most famous morning show host in DC. They started having me on their show to do UFC analysis. Then I got a show on that station. Then I got on Sirius XM, and it kind of all ballooned. Like, you just have to create your own future. You have to do it.
I've had other careers as well, and it's a running theme throughout my life that I have been criminally, like, I don't want to say unprepared because I was prepared, but under-credentialed to be put in a lot of the spots. But it was always me saying, when someone would ask, I'd say, yep, I can do that. And then in my mind going, oh, well, now I got to figure out how the fuck to do that. Yeah. But I did, whether it was PR or finance or whatever.
I think we all eventually hit a crossroads moment, but not everybody goes in the direction that we've luckily been able to go, where we just kind of go all in on ourselves. And sometimes you're forced to do that financially, or sometimes you're forced to do that because you're so frustrated that you're like, F it. You have your total F it moment. And then I think a lot of people get to that point and they just go, well, I don't have that in me. So I'm just going to go the other direction. And you know, but you went after it, and I can totally respect that and feel your passion. And I mean, like, passion is the thing at the end of the day that you can't teach.
Yeah.
When did you get that injected with that passion for this fight game that, like, if you didn't have, you would have been quote unquote found out, right? Like, we sometimes we feel like imposters. Yeah. You would have been an imposter if you didn't get injected with a passion for the game.
That's such an interesting question, because it really, this sounds so stupid, but it really started when I was like 4. I remember my dad used to travel a lot to Asia, and he brought back this little gi, and it was right when Karate Kid came out. And I don't know why my parents let me watch Karate Kid, because I was raised in like a super conservative Christian home, but somehow I watched it.
I know why, because it was the 80s and 90s and there were no rules back then, and parents were like, get out of our house for the day. Go find trouble.
I just fell in love with that movie. I fell in love with the notion of like, I guess maybe smaller people finding ways to be powerful, if that makes sense. And so I remember like I put on that little gi and I'd be on my bed jumping crane kicks or whatever. And then it really just went from there. I did karate all through high school, got my black belt, and then I really didn't do anything during college. And I kind of thought, because I didn't compete in karate, I thought it was kind of all in my past. And I just went through a really tough time in my personal life. And it was Rob Kimmons. I don't know if you know who Rob Kimmons is. He's
the Muay Thai guy, right?
Well, Rob Kimmons, he did do Muay Thai, but he was one of the first UFC fighters out of the Kansas City area, like old school.
Am I thinking of Rob Kamen or somebody
Maybe,
else?
I think you are.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So Rob Kimmons, he didn't have...
Kimmons.
Yeah, Rob Kimmons.
K-I-M-M.
Yeah, K-I-M-M.
Sorry, I misunderstood you. I
Rob
apologize.
Kimmons. I stumbled on him at like a normal weightlifting gym, and he was working out, and I kind of just never let go. Like at first he was like, "No, you can't train with us. You know, like get the fuck out of here." I just kept sticking around and asking, and I think if I can point to a specific moment when like I fell in love with MMA, it was probably my first amateur fight. It's really impossible.
So what year was this? Because your only pro fight was 2013. When was your first amateur fight?
2009.
Okay.
And I've got some that aren't on there. It's not, the difference between 6 and 8 isn't that big. I have 8 fights, people. I can't wait 8 times.
Was any at the Lava Shack outside in the parking lot?
Oh, I fought in a barn once. I fought a girl on meth. It was wild.
At a party or at an official?
BC fights girls on meth every Friday.
It was an official, unofficial fight. I don't know. It was
The first MMA fight I ever went to, this is true, was in a billiards hall.
Yeah, it was in the middle of nowhere in Missouri, and not a great.
Okay, but you seem like a very well-adjusted, normal person in a very abnormal industry
Scene being the
and
operative
sport.
word.
Look,
little do you know.
I have so much respect for fighters, but for you to overcome that barrier that prevents me from taking that leap. Yes, maybe it helped that you grew up in martial arts, but for you to sign down and say, no, I'm going to take an amateur fight, was that an easy leap for you? Because that's the point where most of us get on the couch and order the paper.
Yeah, like what was going on in your life where like, hey, I'm going to have an amateur MMA fight made all the sense?
Yeah, I don't really know. I definitely didn't have like not at all a rough upbringing. In fact, I had a very vanilla, wonderful upbringing. Like my parents were upper middle class, and like I never hurt for money and never got into trouble and made great grades and was like
Where did you grow up?
salutatorian in Kansas City. Yeah. I lived here in New York.
You were
for 2 years.
salutatorian of your high school?
I was, and I was graduated 5th in my class at college. Like I was always
Get after that. Wow.
I was summa cum laude.
You're more of Luke Thomas area because William and Mary grad. I'm the community college.
Phi Beta Kappa was founded at William & Mary. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, but
Take that.
that's people that need those things.
Yeah.
Sororities, fraternities, they're
Like
probably,
people who want jobs.
I have a not so secret crush on his vocabulary. Like there are literally times where I just gush over certain words you use.
It's so unlike all my other experiences in MMA where people are like, why are you talking like that?
yeah.
I'm like, that's just how I
love it.
fucking talk.
I know, I love
If
it.
he would be willing to dye his hair one time, I think I'd have a crush on him too. But he likes the old,
I'm going gray like it's a contest. I mean, it's just,
You're winning.
it won't
Yes.
fucking stop.
Yes.
The gray just is eating me alive.
you can fight back though.
No.
No, with that shoe polish fucking Elvis
Not
Presley,
with-
1975.
No.
You do?
I overdid it that time.
This fucking guy, Laura.
Did you
he
do
will,
it?
Oh, Laura, he will.
Is this die right now?
No. He will show up like he won't say shit, and then we'll show up on set and look like a fucking
person?
like a game show host who's in the last
I looked
stage
like
of his
Elvis
career.
in the '68
Brian.
comeback special with the black leather. I mean, I was just jet black, but it didn't work.
Why do men feel like that matters?
I don't know. I don't.
It
fucking
doesn't
know.
matter.
Yeah, men are insecure. That's why.
Well, so are we. But like, it just, I'm telling you, as a woman of a certain age, I'm a few weeks out from turning 40. Like, it does not matter.
Yeah, welcome.
It doesn't-
Image doesn't matter. Yeah, it does.
Well, image does, but gray hair doesn't.
Oh, gray hair doesn't.
Like, you
yes.
can't be a fat, giant, like, slob,
Right.
but, gray hair.
I mean, Luke's a silver fox. I'll
exactly,
give him
that's what I'm
that,
saying.
right?
You're both silver foxes. If you would just own it, Brian, like, let it shine.
Let the gray. Let the
it-
gray just take you away.
let
I'm
it
that
take-
factory
let
town
the
hero that
gray
needs
take
to
you
realize that the
away.
factories are closed.
Every
right?
time I look in the mirror, I'm like, how the fuck did I turn into Gandalf overnight?
Yeah.
Overnight.
When you posted that picture of you as a Marine.
Oh yeah, 19 years old in that picture.
Yeah.
19 years old. And someone in the comments was like, "Hey, you don't look half bad." I'm like, I haven't always been a Dodge Omni. I might be one now, but I haven't always been a Dodge Omni. Hey, fuck you. You always been a Dodge Omni.
No. You know, I'm one of those
I've depreciated
guys
in
that
value.
you're torn looking at. You're like, he may have had a prime. It's possible. It's
possible.
You know?
Well, he proved it today on Twitter.
Yeah. Post your 19-year-old picture, fucker.
I had a goatee that curled under to here.
Did you really?
I did.
Stop. What year is this?
Did you wear puka shell necklaces?
1997 and 8, and you know those 2 calendar years, I did not do well with the ladies, so it's not a surprise, right? Yeah.
Laura, let's get back to this for just a second, if we may. We're talking about him.
I thought my transition.
I mean,
was
just
fairly,
you describing living in the no fucking section, as interesting as that is. I have to tell you, though, I do wonder about some of the attitudes you might get in the sport, right? Because online, it's just hard to tell what the perception is. I see a lot of positivity around.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this woman doing this amazing things. And I had my wife listen to your commentary, and the first thing she said was like, yo, she does her homework. Like, it was just obviously apparent.
His wife once rolled with Roxanne Modafferi.
That's true.
Did she really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, she
amazing.
did. But
You thought I was going to demean her, that beautiful woman.
yeah, if you did, we'd have some problems. But on the other side, I do wonder what it's like, because I don't have your job, I don't have your life, I don't have your career. But every time I put out even a video where I'm breaking down something,
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, you know, is it going to be accepted or whatnot? You got a job doing commentary, still with Contender Series, not full on UFC events, before any other female fighters got it.
Yeah.
I wonder if you faced any pushback for that.
Well, for sure. I mean, there's a whole. I mean, you don't have to dig very hard on Twitter to find. There's a whole contingent of people that love to point out. Like, well, even just the other day, I did another radio show, and I was, you know, like you, I'm curious about how people are receptive, especially when I do kind of more in-depth analysis and not just, hey guys, here I am. And a lot of positivity, but then there's like someone that's always like, she's a Johnny-come-lately from ESPN that knows nothing about the sport. And I'm like, well, first off, I don't even work for ESPN. Second of all, I mean, I know I don't have the longest topology. I get that. It's teeny, teeny, tiny. But I've been in the sport, in the trenches of the sport, I'll even say, since 2006. Like, I'm still training. I just got my brown belt. Like,
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. You know, but I just kind of I try to shake that stuff off, because the people that matter in my world, the people that are there to open more doors and the doors that I really want open, they get it. And so at the end of the day, I just got to shut it out. And I will say this, probably more positive than not. I was a little scared, especially when I first did the LFA fights. Like, the jump from Invicta to LFA felt like a big jump. And then, of course, the jump from LFA to Contender Series also felt like a big jump. And every time I've made that jump, I've been pleasantly surprised by male and female reception of, but yeah, there's a lot of like, why is it her? And
well, there's going to be sharks, right?
Yeah.
If it's a pool worth swimming in, there's going to be sharks.
And I'm for sure, listen, I'm totally, like, everyone knows I'm fucking Dana. And you know,
well, I wasn't expecting you to break news
and my
here.
boss, and my
No, I get
boss,
you, though.
and any guy I've
These are
ever
just
seen
facts
with.
suddenly
They're
on the internet.
total facts.
But do you echo what like the pro wrestlers will say when they retire? What I learned in this business is you can either have friends or make money. Yeah, I mean, at some point in this game, maybe in any corporate structure where people are trying to make their moves, you do have to at some point protect the brand, right? And just not, and be like, I mean, Luke doesn't give a damn. I actually respect it to a degree. I don't get it, but like,
Why are
he
you spinning
doesn't
it back
give
on me?
a damn what his followers, he's like $30 to ask a single question, but they still pay it, Luke. But you don't care about them at all. But us normal people, we have like heartstrings and like we're reactive sometimes.
In no way, shape, or form are you a normal person. I want that to be clear.
I mean, I guess you got to just, you know.
Is there a question there?
No, it's just people that, you know, people that have crawled through and made it, Luke. They like to have, sometimes like to sit around and just talk about their success.
War stories.
Successful people.
Yes.
I will say this, and hearing you talk about this and like, you know, some of the bullshit I've done to get ahead at all, I hate the things you have to do to win in this world. I really do. Like you have to, like,
you got to play the game, Luke.
Whatever little bit of success I've tasted has taught me, it's like, now I know why assholes finish first.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you feel that way?
I do, but I'm genuinely trying to like combat that, because I have that the conversation we're having right now, I have with myself all the time, where it's incredibly frustrating when certain things play out the way that they do, or certain people have attitudes that are completely unjust and unprovoked and whatever. there's a lot of like, she shouldn't be having the success she's having, so let's.
It has been fast. I will say that.
Yeah.
Or I know you worked all that time, and then there was the turning points at around 2018 or so. But it has been meteoric since then, anyway.
For sure it has. And I've worked my ass off for it. That's probably the part I get.
Long time in the cocoon before the wing showed.
Yeah, fair enough.
I love that, Brian.
Fair enough.
I'm stealing that. I'm still wiggling out of that cocoon over here. I don't remember what the question was.
Yeah, me neither, but I got a great follow-up.
All right.
So the real drug in this game in broadcasting, in my opinion, is being able to lay your finger on a fight, add the soundtrack. You're not in the cage anymore. I'm not in the boxing ring, but somebody decided it was a good idea to pay me money to put on a suit and help, author or throw a dab of myself onto the soundtrack of the call.
Yeah.
Being there is a drug, separate from the money, the prestige, this is all I ever wanted to do but didn't think I could actually get here. The drug of me showing up every time is that I'm inches away from a live fight, and whatever the hell I react is the record of no. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on a call because you can watch it without the volume like Luke and nobody knows what we're talking about. But do you feel that drug every Contender series when you go out there, that there's an energy, there's something insanely fun and dangerous here, and I'm right in the midst of it?
100% I do. And it's not unlike fighting. It really isn't. And that's probably why I was so drawn to this side of things, because when I knew I wasn't going to return to fighting after having my son, I had to stay close to the sport. Like, it's too much in me. It's too much in my bones, too much a part of my day-to-day life to just not be involved somehow. I would have been a manager or an agent, something. But yeah, to sit there and to be able to, I think the word you used is perfect, to author, to communicate the art that someone is displaying. And I think for me, because of the way that I stepped away from the sport, and like, there never was an atomweight class in the UFC. So there wasn't a reason for me to push on that side of things. I think that I live vicariously through the fighters, and I mean all of them. Like, win, lose, or draw, you might even be fighting a teammate of mine. I still care about telling your story as properly as I can. And when I say story, like the story of how you express yourself in a fight, and doing my best to do it justice. And to me, because I don't have a belt to point at or a long Tapology page or whatever, I know I have to compensate.
Right.
And I do that by doing an inordinate amount of research on everything I can, which, let me tell you, with Road to UFC,
not easy.
It's so hard.
The names alone are hard to pronounce.
I'm not overly proud of my commentary on that show, because it is so incredibly difficult to keep the names straight and to keep people's stories straight. And we don't have any background information on them. It's very different even than Contender series. We don't get like the sit down, like kind of get to know them as a person and be able to attach a story to who they are as a fighter.
Also, it's a 2-man booth, not a 3-man, correct?
Yes, and I'm the only, yes, exactly. That was another jump that felt scary at the time, because there's a little part of me that's like, well, they'll accept me as this third wheel that chimes in and says things here and there, but which is totally fine. I don't mind that. I actually like that role. I get that DC, Mike Bisping, Paul Felder, whoever, those are the guys. I just want like a seat at the table. But then when I'm the only one at the table, it's like, well, here we go,
For women who want to get into broadcasting in combat sports, what's your advice? What are a couple good lessons you've learned?
You have to do a lot for free first, and a lot.
Oh yeah.
And just accept that. Like, the first MMA media gig I had was for when Titan FC was back in Kansas City all the time, the old days on Access TV. I just really wanted to go to the fights because a lot of my friends were fighting on it, and I just wanted to go to the fights and sit cage side. So I offered, I don't remember the name of the blog, but I offered some blog like, hey, I'll sit there and type out blow by blow, horrible recaps. Like, then he threw a left hand. Next, like, it was atrocious. Who would want to read that? But it was a reason, like, I got a ticket. I didn't make any money, but I got a ticket and I got to sit right next to the action. And that was 2009. So
All those hours mattered, by the way, in the end. They all make the puzzle. They're all important pieces in the end.
They did. So, like, even as an amateur, I obviously wasn't anywhere close to commentating or communicating what I was seeing, but I was looking at fights differently, I think, than I would have otherwise, for sure.
So anything else besides working for free to start?
Okay, so working for free at the start and just accept that that's okay. If you have specific sites set on the UFC or a big promotion, like, you got to figure out what promotion is a feeder to that promotion, and try to, like, and if you can't get in with a Fight Pass promotion, then you figure out, okay, who feeds into those, you know, and then start climbing the ladder and start putting yourself out there and offering to do things. Like, I think that's the biggest thing too. You can't wait for opportunities to come to you.
No one's going to be able to advocate for you better than yourself. And I had to learn it, like, corporately, the long, hard way of, like, you know, hard work isn't enough. You got, you know, if the person above you that has the ability to hire you doesn't know that you're interested in being hired, then it's the end of the conversation right there, right? You know, that's
100%. You have to chase it down. You got to call up that local promotion and say, hey, I know you're not on TV, but, like, I could do some interviews and put them on a YouTube page. Oh, we haven't really thought about that, you know? Anything like that, and then just don't stop. But in terms of, like, specifically being a woman, I think
is the I have to be twice as good rule effect?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm mortified when I make mistakes, like, mortified, to the point where it really keeps me up, and I'm running through them in my head right now. And, you know, the guys that do the commentary make mistakes all the time, and it's no big deal because people make mistakes. You're going to use the wrong name for a submission or whatever. It's really hard to talk for 7 hours and not say something that's not perfectly correct, right? But yeah, I do feel the pressure to not fuck up, and because it's not just about me. Again, I don't like using the word pioneer, but I do feel like
it's a responsibility.
There is a mantle of responsibility, because if whoever it is, but it happens to be me, goes out there and completely bombs or feeds into some sort of stereotype that people might have about a female commentator, and everyone's like, oh, we didn't like that. That ruins it for a lot of other women. And there are a lot of women coming up that are going to be capable of doing this job very soon. I feel like, I think I said this to you when we did our interview right after I got the Contender Series gig. I happen to be at a very unique crossroads of having the fight knowledge, having the actual practical knowledge, the jiu-jitsu knowledge, the striking knowledge, and then having the television chops, enough of the television chops. There just are not that many women who live at that crossroads yet, but they're coming up. And I hope that...
The future is female, everyone. Just wanted to let you know that, Luke, okay?
The future isn't... it's not exclusively female.
Tookies. All right, the future is your daughters,
hope.
Okay?
We certainly hope.
Yeah.
Now, to backtrack on your story a little bit here, just so I have all the pieces in place, you got the very first, like, real gig was what? Like, something on YouTube for, you know, fuckface MMA doesn't count.
Okay, real gig would have been Invicta.
Okay, how'd you get that gig?
Shannon Knapp, the owner at the time, literally called me out of nowhere. I had either just had my son or I was maybe even still pregnant at the time. I think I had just had my son. And she probably knew, you know, MMA was not ever going to be, I shouldn't say it. I wanted to have an MMA career if it was going to be in the UFC. But for Invicta to be the apex was not enough for me financially or time-wise. So I think she kind of knew that. And she just called me out of nowhere and was like, hey, Marloes Kunin is coming to town. We don't have a sideline reporter. Would you be willing to interview her on air? And I said, yes. Mm-hmm. And then I proceeded to say, but Shannon, you do know I've never held a microphone before. I've never looked at a camera before. I don't. And she's like, you'll be fine. I can tell you're going to be good at this. So kudos to her too.
And that led to Fox Sports?
And that led to an audition with Fox Sports, specifically for the UFC. It wasn't like Fox Sports in general. They auditioned me. Actually, they auditioned me as an anchor, and I had never worked with multiple cameras. I had never worked with
It's not so easy, is it?
Analysts.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah.
It was so awful.
People don't. I mean, I have a hard time with it still if they don't have the trail lights on them. It's hard to follow which way to go.
I'd never read from a teleprompter. Like that's
Right.
still to this day. That's the only time I've ever read from a teleprompter, which is incredibly. I get Ron Burgundy. I understand his pain. They could have put anything in there, and I would have said.
And so,
it.
did you do? So you didn't do any PBC on boxing
No.
with Fox? Just
I did not.
UFC.
I did not. Just UFC. So they auditioned me, and I'm sure they were like, "Well, she is definitely not cut out to be an anchor, but knows her shit. So let's see how she does as a reporter." But even
Then when it went to ESPN, because Contender Series didn't start till the ESPN era, correct?
No, it was before. It was on Fight Pass only.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah,
Excuse
back
me.
in
Yes,
the
what am I saying?
back
Yes,
in
of
the
course it
old
was.
school, it was 90. I'm not exaggerating. 97 degrees where you see me doing those interviews in this hallway. 97 degrees, and full of marijuana smoke in the first few weeks when they were just letting Snoop do his thing. Oh, it was incredible. What a time to be alive.
Reminds me of the studio.
I was hoping for more of a cloud when I walked in, to be honest.
Well, our cameramen have all, vaped and ingested edibles instead of smoking right in front of us. They're very strategic in their intake. Big fans of these guys.
Everyone looks very mellow as I look out.
Well, I mean, TikTok is very important when you're filming a show. You know.
Yeah.
Look at Tristan.
Is that what he's doing?
I don't see how Luke could go. Greg, I love you as a broadcaster here, but you did something most of us scumbag MMA media members will never do. And in 2013, was it Invicta 3?
Invicta 4.
Invicta 4.
Invicta 4.
You took on, recent BKFC fighter.
Oh, yeah,
Cassie
I forgot about that.
Robb.
Yeah.
And I believe you submitted her in round 1. So this, not footnote of your life, this in a lot of ways is most responsible for the work you're doing right now, right? I mean, you lived that life. How do you look back on that as like, oh, that was awesome and I was awesome? Or, I mean, where were you? Where was your headspace turning pro in 2013?
At the time, I thought it was going to be off to the races. And just to see what I could do in Invicta. Because again, this is pre-Ronda. It's right before Ronda, but it's still pre-Ronda. And we don't really know, is this experiment of women in MMA going to be a real thing or not? Or is it just going to be like, oh, let's have Ronda and then never mind? So it very much felt like I was at the apex of MMA for women at the time.
Toronto and Cyborg had opened people's eyes that it's possible in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But it hadn't taken yet, right?
Yes.
I said it before, when I first started covering MMA, they had 3-minute rounds
Exactly.
for women. Like that changed while I was covering this shit.
It was very, very different times. But I did envision like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to work my ass off and become an Invicta champion. I was on that card with Amanda Nunes and Paige Van Zandt and Carla Esparza, and I think Jessica Penne was on it. Like, you go down that card in particular, it's just this
All-stars.
all-stars. It's awesome to see. But at the time, I thought that was it, and it was an incredible experience, and I'm glad I did it. But it is frustrating at times to not have more fights to point at in this position, because that's honestly like the biggest critique I get is
What happened after that fight before you started your family? Was there ideas for a second fight?
I was already in camp. Yeah, I think I'd signed a contract. I at least verbally agreed to my next fight, and my joke that I continued to just beat to death is that I had to pull out because my husband didn't. So.
Oh wow, that's a very MK friendly joke, Luke. To be fair,
She's right at home. I mean, let's just be honest. She's right at home. With that in mind,
I don't know. Yeah,
with that in mind, how are your DMs these days? You used to post. So let's back up a step. You used to post these guys. They'd be sending like the worst dick pics and like pitches to you.
Should we celebrate these?
And then
people?
but then she would take it and then she would like dunk on it and then post it. I'm imagining they haven't stopped. Or
No, they haven't stopped. I mean, they've gotten less creative. I was always the creative ones.
It's just dongs now.
That I could like. It's just dicks.
That's like his fucking DMs too.
I don't think you can prove that.
But it is wild to me. Wait, what?
No, he's always telling me that I've got viewers sending me their sticks, and they know our rules. We can have.
I tell people on air, I'm like, yo, send your dick pics to Brian.
No,
just send them. He's waiting
just
for
say no. No stick pics.
There was a guy for a while, and I absolutely loved it, where he would send me a dick pic every day, but it was a picture of someone named Dick.
You're way too positive about the first half of the sentence. He was so charming.
I'm going to do this to you.
No.
This is going to be great.
You didn't let me finish. finish. It was a picture of someone named Dick. So it would be Dick Van Dyke or,
they were doing a bit.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And I really genuinely looked, I'm like, oh, I wonder what my dick pic is for today. That guy I appreciated. I don't
Was
know
that you, BC? Was that you?
That was
your
not.
burner account?
No. You know what's interesting about the dichotomy of our characters, Luke, is the me on screen is the exact opposite of me in real life, and the you on screen is the exact opposite of you in real life.
That's true.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I don't
You're
know if that-
unbearable in real life. I'm kidding.
I have to tolerate you too.
Yeah, that is also true. So, you got a first round submission against Cassie Robb. Did
Yeah.
you take on any damage? What happened? How much did that like shit? I'm a badass.
It's weird. You know, I have some very clear memories. I'm probably more proud of the fight before that, the amateur title that I won, because it was a war and I had my elbow popped but didn't tap and the ref didn't see it and kind of like continued on.
Very Nogueira of you. I
Yeah,
like that.
I almost knocked her out with a body kick, but she did the whole like, and I just wasn't, 105. I don't pack a lot of heat in these hands.
Yeah.
So couldn't quite get her out of there, but it was an absolute war. And it was the first time I'd ever fought or even like had, sparred or whatever, someone taller than me at 105. Like she was 5'7", 105. I'm very tall for 105.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this bitch is huge. Not huge, but like, why are her arms so long?
Who cornered you for that?
That would have been, let me think about this. James Krause
Okay.
and Tim, maybe?
Elliott?
Tim Elliott? This is a long time ago, but I know James did because I remember hearing his voice like in certain times. I think
Giving instruction or whatever.
yeah, and like when she had me in the armbar, and yeah, it was cool too because like it was right as he was transitioning from a teammate to kind of, he wasn't yet a coach on the team, but in that camp in particular, like he helped me figure out some strategy for what would work against her, and the body kick was something that he and I worked on a lot, and so I remember him saying like that was a really cool moment for him because he was like, it was the first time I like kind of had a game plan for someone and we worked on it and then it played out in a fight. So
what's the goal here? You trying to get on UFC pay-per-views?
I mean, that's the ultimate goal, but the immediate goal is to be on UFC Fight Nights. Yeah, I would like to do that very much so.
How realistic is that?
Very.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
very.
I mean, can you
right
share to what extent you've gotten feedback from the folks who are in charge of production about how you've done with Contender Series?
I think they've been pleasantly surprised. I did an audition, because this is the part of stuff that people don't realize. Like, I've had a lot of failures. It's outwardly, it's like, oh, this meteoric rise or whatever. But there's been a lot of stuff that's happened back behind the scenes where people have been like, oh, we're never going to do that. Like we would never do that. Or like, why would we ever, you wouldn't fit in that position or, okay, we'll give you an audition and then I fucking bomb the audition or whatever the case may be. So it took a lot to get that spot on the Contender Series. And I knew that first show with Paul that I had to it couldn't just be pretty good. It couldn't just be like, oh, she was okay.
You had to throw a no-hitter.
I had to. And I'm not saying it was perfect, but I feel like I achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I think as a result of that, they've seen me grow, and I think them giving me the road to UFC. I don't want to say it was a test, but to be the only color commentator. Now, John Gooden, he knows
That's a pro.
as much as any,
Right. That's
so
a pro.
It really, in many ways, like he provided a lot of.
Seems like a gentleman
support.
too. Like
He's
if I was in a
wonderful.
foreign country and got shit blasted, blackout drunk, and I committed a felony, I would want him to make sure I got back to my hotel room.
Yes, he's that guy. But he also, I will say this about him.
If you're out there, John, yeah.
He's a little bit more. He's less of the bow tie in person than you might imagine.
Oh,
he'll let.
He's a little saucy?
He's a little saucy.
He'll run a little how's your father?
So wait,
in a good way.
Does this mean in 2023 we'll see you doing fight nights?
I can't make any declarative statements at the time, but I feel very optimistic about.
Take the over on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be truly a monument. Have you I don't know. Like, what does that mean to you?
It's hard.
Does it mean like it's certainly an upgrade to what you've been doing? Although you've been doing great things. What would that mean to you? Is that fulfillment? Like, what is that exactly?
I think about that a lot, and it's a weird question. Did you ever watch that movie, the kids' movie Soul?
Yes.
Oh, the Pixar one.
Yes.
With Jamie Foxx.
That movie made me weep, and it actually made he was probably 6 at the time. Even my son was crying. Like it's a
beautiful movie.
It's a beautiful movie, and it really made me think about, like, I'm gonna get choked up here. If I get to this thing that I think is the apex, that I think is like everything I want it to be, am I really gonna feel that way about it? You know what I mean? Like, or is it the moments like this, the journey in getting there, that's really the thing that I love? And that is the truth.
Sometimes, though, it depend on what your why actually is.
Yeah.
Have you been able to look inward enough and realize, like, above all else, what is the reason you're willing to knock on doors, have the belief that things that haven't been done in a while can be possible, or have never been done can be possible? Like, what at the end of the day is your why in this game?
My why for what I'm trying to do started out very much about myself and my self drive. Like, I'm an incredibly driven, A-type, perfect grades, summa cum laude. Like, I've always been ridiculously, annoyingly like that. However, once I started doing it and started seeing how much it meant, like, I had no idea how much it would mean to not just women. Like, I have so many, just the other day, and I always cut them out, and I have a little folder in my phone that I stick them in. This dad texted me, and he's like, or messaged me on Instagram, and he said, you know, I'm from Ireland, like, you don't know me, but I love what you're doing, and being able to do it in such a male-dominated industry and do it with grace and have a sense of humor and, like, just be one of the guys. Like, I would give anything for my daughter to grow up and be like you. And I'm like, when someone says something like that, that's mind-blowing to me. So now, and for a long while now, my wow really is I'm not saying I'm gonna, like, shatter some sort of glass ceiling, but I wanna crack it. I wanna put a big old crack in it if I can do that, so that someone with a UFC title around their belt and with, you know, the credentials, whatever, can smash it.
I've actually never asked you your why. What is it?
Not only is that inspiring, but that's how my dog acts. As soon as she gets outside, like to someone else's mailbox, she's like, I want people to know I was here, so I can relate to that. That's a great question, and I think your why has to be absolute. Obviously, there's other factors, like we all want to get paid. We all want to people to think we're cool.
The money is nice.
All that is great, and look, at the end of the day, taking care of my family is the most important thing above all. But what's my real why for working this hard is because in my 20s, there were times in my life that I punted life and said, okay, I understand now that I have underachieved, that I gave it away. It's my fault. But I know at the end of the day, no one needs to tell me. I know at the end of the day, I could have been a contender. I know I could have done something. Never could have guessed this. Calling fights, never could have guessed that. But even if it was just being a nationally known writer, I knew I had something to give. And my backstory is all crazy, like every one of our stories are. But, you know, at some point, you know, the good Lord decided that I could be pulled out of the muck and that there was a second chance. Yeah. And I am forever driven not to let that chance go. That from hell or high water, obviously it helps when you're fighting to keep the lights on, which at times in our careers, that's what it's been, right? Yeah. Fighting to pay the rent. And that all is a great motivator. But I cannot let this thing end without giving everything I had. And even if it means getting as close to the flame and getting fired or fucking up or just straight up proving that you can't do it at the end of the day when you think you can, I'm willing to stand out on that ledge and do that because something was birthed. And I think it's inside of all of us. It takes a while to figure out, and sometimes we don't get there. But I got there, and this thing's gonna fly. It's been a wild ride, but I'm Sully Sullenberger. At the end of the day, I'm gonna land that fucking plane right in the Hudson, like right.
Well, first you're gonna drive it into the geese.
Absolutely.
Then you're gonna put it on.
Yes. So Luke, that's what it's about. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. It's like I'm not looking for a fight. I don't even have a fight in my. If I had a life box rec page, I don't even have life fights in that regard. But I've been fighting my whole life, Luke, okay? And if you corner me like a wounded animal, I will fucking kill you. All right, and that's actually not a message to motivate anybody. That's a threat to you directly. Okay,
Wait, he went from cornering you to killing you.
Okay, all right. That's the escalation.
Fighting and fucking, it's the same thing.
Yes. No, seriously, but can you identify with that a little bit?
I can, yeah. If I had to, to the extent that I have the similar kind of feeling, yeah, I would just say I had a weird childhood. I didn't have like the worst childhood, but it was not awesome. I never felt like I was good at anything. I just want to be good at something, truly. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I've often found the things I like, I can be better at. The things I don't like, it's hard for me to like swallow and do work that I'm uninterested in. But if I like it, I can tend to just put pedal to the metal. And
you want to feel like
I just want to do.
Purpose, Luke. I want to feel like you lived for a reason. Okay?
Yeah, I want to produce things that people find value in. Truly, that's really about it. Yeah.
I want to entertain people. That's all it is. This is another angle. I could be doing community theater instead. I'm doing this bullshit podcast. But I just want people to feel something, and that feeling.
You've got a very community theater vibe with
that feeling. May be that they don't respect me and they never will, and I'm just that clown to them. But I don't know if I'm insecure enough or driven enough. But I need them to feel what I'm offering. Okay. Now that may sound like I need a restraining order, but I'm not necessarily going that road. Is that road open? It's possible, but I'm not going down that road.
Okay, glad you clarified that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say, though, one part about and no one gives a fuck about our troubles, but I just will say one part that is quite the downside, the travel.
I was just going to bring that
up. The travel is, like, being away from my daughter, I fucking hate
my dogs, I feel that. I feel that when I'm not with them. You're a mother.
What about your kids?
You feel that. I love my kids and my wife.
I'm motherfucking cat,
I'm saying the whole, Reggie Jackson, my cat.
Reggie Jackson's the man.
Yeah.
I wondered why you went with your dogs.
Yeah.
Because I love all of my people.
His dog is extremely sweet, though. It's an unusually sweet dog. Yeah.
Do you feel that same?
The travel?
Yeah, no, the travel's insane. In fact, truth be told, like I always wondered what my limit was, because another thing that I would attribute to my success is you asked me to do it, I'll do it. Like, opportunity presents itself, yes, just say yes to everything.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And then you find yourself like, wow, this summer during Contender Series, I found my limit. I found my limit, and it involved me in a puddle of tears on FaceTime with my husband. I can't do this. I just want to come home. Why am I doing this? What is this all for?
Am I just following a selfish need?
Am I doing this for me?
Right, or am I just telling myself I'm just feeding the family when the family would probably be just as happy if I was selling insurance, right?
That's the hardest part for me is I'm not feeding my family with this. My husband is the breadwinner. I mean, I make a great living now, and I'm proud of that. And I that means more to me than I thought it would. Like, I hadn't been an earner in a while before I got married. But the reality is that if my job went away tomorrow, it wouldn't matter. So it automatically feels more selfish because it's not financially necessary for my family. So then I really have to sit back and say, why am I doing this? What is it about? Is it ego-driven? Is it not ego-driven? What will it mean to my son and to my family? And how can I make sure that I don't forsake one for the other while I go down this path?
And by the way, getting that right, figuring out when you can do that, it's not so obvious sometimes.
No.
It's not so easy.
It's a gray area, and you would try to make it white or black enough to feel good at the end of the day. But, I don't know if we ever can feel good, but I think, as long as you got your things balanced and you got your priorities right, which you seem to have, then you'll be okay. But what you're saying right there, I definitely feel that.
My son makes all the difference. He's 8 and he'll be 9 in December.
Ooh, okay.
And he always talks me off the ledge. He's such a smart kid for his age. He can be a little shit like all of them can, but he's very emotionally in tuned, especially to me, I think. And he can tell, especially during Contender Series, when it gets to be like that 3rd, 4th week. I always like this analogy. When you go in the ocean, the first wave comes, and you're just like wading in the ocean. The first wave comes, and you're like, woo, this is so fun. We're in the ocean, waves. And the second wave comes, like, ooh, this is still fun. This is cool. And then that third one comes a little sooner than you thought it would.
And now you're trying to get your balance.
And then you're like, oh, okay. And then that 4th one's there, and you're just like, fuck.
This is like you're describing doing mushrooms. I can relate to that.
I don't know about that, but it's definitely Contender Series. Like, the first couple weeks are fine. And then week 5, and then I'm doing my YouTube channel and all it, like, it's too much. But point being, my son sat me down. He literally pulled me aside, and he's like, come here. And he pulled me into his room, and he shut the door. And he goes, I'm going to choke up. He goes, Mom, he's like, you don't need to feel bad about being gone. I know what you're doing is super important. He goes, you're the first female commentator in the history of the UFC. I need to tell him about Kathy Long.
Even Kathy Long would be like, you're fine. Just let them keep talking.
I actually had a great conversation with Kathy Long.
She's great, yeah.
She's amazing.
Cool?
Right after it happened, she and I talked on the phone. We'd never met before. I just hit her up. I was like, our names are getting mentioned a lot together. I want to know you. We talked on the phone for 3 hours. It could have been 7.
Great.
3 hours straight. I love that woman.
Could you illuminate us? What does she feel like she gave to this weird business? Because she was a fighter before that, right?
It is. I like to think of her as like the female Chuck Norris of the 80s and 90s. She was doing stunt work in movies. She was a multiple-time champion kickboxer. I mean, she was a badass way before women were badasses in combat sports. Like she is a real pioneer. Like that woman deserves that title. And I kind of sheepishly called her up because honestly, there was a part of me that felt bad that some of the headlines kept reading first. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be like, listen, I know that you're the first and I am not taking away from that. And she was really sweet. She's like, listen, they only had me on one show and I barely talked. She's like, and then she just ran me through.
Bill Wallace wouldn't stop burping. That's why.
She did.
Bill Wallace. And what was the Jim? My brain doesn't work anymore.
Brown, the greatest football player of all time.
Yes.
She has sworn me to secrecy on many a story surrounding that one show, which I want to say declaratively was not under the Zuffa banner.
Right. SCG.
It sounded like quite the experience. And the
When
one
we
thing,
do our Only Pipes after show, we can tell the
yes,
Yeah, fair enough.
the one thing that I will say that never really crossed my mind, she was like, Laura, you have to understand, this was so far before the internet. The sport did not exist. So ask me as a striker when I'd ever even been exposed to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, you probably, she goes, no, I had no idea what I was looking at. None. Of course I'm a striker. Of course I can call shots, but like, it was this weird, freakish thing. And like, I'm expected to say intelligent things about it. And she's like, I didn't know, I had no idea what they were doing on the ground because no one knew what jiu-jitsu was. And I thought, oh my God, that must have been absolutely terrifying to be this well-respected martial artist, just be thrown in this situation, like, here, talk about this. And you're like, no one's ever seen it before. How are you supposed to talk about it?
The 90s were fucking wild.
How are you supposed to talk about it? There's nothing.
You know, when my kid was born, I went on, because, you'd be up at 3 a.m. just doing whatever the fuck. Mm-hmm. And I started watching movies. I was like, I'm going to watch early 90s movies. They're violent as shit.
Yeah, blood
right?
sport.
There was something happening in the early 90s. Don't you feel like that?
I lived it.
I
loved it. I mean, you're not that much younger than us.
No, so your Christian parents let you watch blood sport?
Oh yeah, my Catholic parents let me watch whatever I wanted. But yeah, So did you? I mean, you were what, in middle school in the 90s at least, right?
Yeah, but I had an older brother, and I was like his shadow. So really, I lived the life 4 years older than I am.
Yes.
All
What
the
year did you graduate high school?
I graduated 2001.
2001, okay.
But I lived the music, I lived the
Okay,
MTV,
I got a great
the
question.
fashion, whatever,
And
from 4 years ahead of me.
For your life and your feelings, what is the most 90s song? For me, Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind is the most 90s song.
I hate
I feel
that
very
song.
90s when
I
hear
hate that song so much.
I know, but it is so
Curse
90s.
that
It's
word that
perfectly
came
90s.
out of your mouth.
I'm going to go
God.
here. Ready? I'm going to go Sublime. What I Got.
What I Got,
is a great
yeah.
pick.
Yeah.
That's a great pick.
Alanis Morissette. It's like rain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Or
Jack Little Pill sold a lot of records.
Blind Melon.
Oh, yeah. No Rain.
Oh, yeah. What's his face? He died, though.
Shannon Hoon.
Shannon Hoon, yeah.
Wow,
Hoon,
that
yeah.
was pulled that
You know,
one.
I got a lot of swords. You know what I'm saying? There were a lot of them were dull though, but a couple of times I'm.
That
Did
one
you go to
wasn't-
concerts in the 90s?
No, I was too young. And I had protective parents. I did go to I went to a concert that was like a festival before festivals were a thing. So Bon Jovi was there and I was front row and I thought that was really cool because he winked at me. And I was 17. But no, not a big, I went to Dave Matthews. I take that back. I went to Dave Matthews.
How was that? A lot of white people there, right?
It was a lot of white people, and I was not enough of a Dave Matthews dyed-in-the-wool fan where I was like, yes, bring on this 11-minute you know, extemporaneous jazz solo.
This fantastic violin solo.
Yeah,
My brother went to UVA when Dave Matthews Band blew up.
Yeah.
And he was always like, I see them out in town in Charlottesville. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't care.
Well, back then, though, they were good.
Yeah, they were
really
I'm
good
being
back
honest.
then.
If I'm being honest, I didn't love
Hey,
it.
well, we still have some time left. Let's talk some headlines.
All right.
All right. Jon Jones, you think he's going to come back at all?
I do.
You do? Okay.
I do.
Now, with that caveat in mind, does he actually win the UFC heavyweight title? Whoever that's against in whatever order. But by the end of whenever he comes back, does he have
Looks
the
like
title?
if you're a magic 8-ball, what would you be saying?
Yes,
You think so?
I do.
Tell me why.
I do. I think that his skill set was extraordinary at light heavyweight, and I think that it's been such a long process. I would have been more worried about him rushing to heavyweight. I feel like he's been sitting in this heavyweight body for a while now, and the dynamism of his striking at light heavyweight, bring that into a heavyweight setting, and I feel like it's going to be really difficult for people to give. I love thinking about him facing a Cyril Gane, but then you're like, well, Jon Jones can wrestle.
Right.
I mean,
what do you make of what is your best explanation for the relative decline of his performance at light heavyweight towards the end there?
I think for him, it has always been about stuff that's outside of the octagon. I really do. I think that to some degree, you're naturally going to have competitors that start to learn how to fight you better, right? Mm-hmm. Over time, people are going to get smarter about how they approach a Jon Jones fight. So I think we saw Dominic Reyes at the peak really understanding how to not, get past that force field that he puts up. And
Let's shout out Maheta as well.
Yes. Thiago Santos, another. I think part of it is people figuring Jon out a little bit, but I really attribute most of it to just him not being fully dialed in.
I will say, if he can take that much time off from the sport, and while the game has moved on and evolved,
it will be extraordinary.
And to just jump right back in and claim a title, it's not just that he did it in a different weight class. All the time he's missed, and to be still ahead of the game, it's not that I'm skeptical of his abilities, but just that alone is difficult for any human mortal to do.
Do you, in your mind, see, I'm an interviewer.
Here we go.
I'm going to ask the questions now,
Show
Luke.
us that skill set.
In your minds, if he comes back at heavyweight and we feel confident that he is clean and it feels like a fresh start in some ways.
Clean-ish. I mean, look.
Yeah, am I confident he's clean? No, I'm not, but I don't care.
I mean, at least one of our hosts might be on Delta 8s at the moment. It's just the way of the world.
I guess my question is, because I have this argument/discussion with DC sometimes. It's a hard one to have with him in particular, and I can understand why.
That,
Do you allow him to remove the asterisk from his GOAT status if he does it at heavyweight?
To me, he doesn't have an asterisk. I don't buy it.
To me, even with the picograms, he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
If he wins the heavyweight championship in any form, short of a robbery or something, he's not only going to already be the GOAT, it's with a bullet. It's where, unfortunately for guys like Khabib, GSP, Anderson, the greatest of the greats, they will now look up at the finest of the farm animals, that giant ass GOAT. Honey Boo Boo Wild Thing was onto something when she was calling him.
She certainly might have been. But yes, if he comes back and, don't you remember that was on his phone?
No.
When he got pulled
So
over.
he got pulled over, and if you look at
That was who was on his phone?
that was how it was listed in the phone, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I've got a better
That's a
question
good pet
for
name.
you. I got deep pulls, all right? You remember, of course, what was it, October of 2018, when Khabib and Conor set a new UFC pay-per-view record, I believe at 2.4 million buys, besting the 1.65-ish that Conor and Nate had done in their rematch. The next great pay-per-view fight that could beat Conor versus Khabib are the two fighters in question even in the UFC and active at the moment. What's the next great crossover slam dunk pay-per-view that's going to rock the records? Do we even have those fighters right now?
It's John and Francis to me.
That can do over 2 mil.
We have
I
argued
think so.
together.
I think people love heavyweights.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I think it would sell gangbusters.
Raiders
I don't know if it beats
Stadium,
Conor and
bro.
Khabib.
Put it in the Raiders football stadium. Okay?
Yeah.
Go about 80 grand
I
to fans.
think the not having John for a long time creates this buildup of anticipation. If it was the second Jon Jones fight after he was returned, no. But the one where he returns, and if it's with an opponent like Francis. I don't think it does that with Stipe, but if it's Francis, I think it could.
It's a huge fight. I mean, there's no denying that. All right. How long do you think Makhachev holds the belt? In other words, who is his toughest contender?
These are difficult questions.
Yeah, of course. Well, we have a UFC commentator here.
All right, I'll challenge her.
Who's smashing through glass ceilings.
She's trying to climb out of this couch.
She can't answer these questions.
You can get lost in that ass cushion right there.
Exactly.
You know?
Based on what I saw in Abu Dhabi, I think he's going to have that title for a while.
He might, right? He might have that motherfucker for a while.
A while.
I couldn't, it was funny. I was telling him there was this YouTube channel that was taking people's predictions pre-fight, and we both picked Makhachev. But like even us, we were saying things like, Charles has much better striking ahead of time, which again, ahead of the fight, that was all the evidence indicated that. And then he goes in there and then just pulls all the pins out of the grenade.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
When he lit Charles up in the first couple of seconds, I was like, oh, shit.
Because you know what? Javier Mendez, who I love, he'll say things like, dude, Makhachev's the most complete fighter ever. And you're like,
Makhachev handled Habib.
Yeah.
And you're like, Hav, I love you, but that's crazy. And then he goes and does that shit. You're like, that fucking guy Javier might be telling the truth.
So that's when I start to really get on these hype trains with people. When you get the gym lore, it's like the Bo Nickel thing. I know we have virtually no footage on Bo Nickel, but it's the stories that people from his camp tell you behind closed doors, off camera, in sheer honesty. Like
in his own way, he's a one of one like Brock Lesnar. Like in his own way, he's something just potentially extra special that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Could that possibly happen? Could Bo Nickel be that New Hope, episode 4? Young Luke,
she can
absolute bitch, young Luke Skywalker. And so was his father, Anakin.
Dude, have you noticed how Star Wars made the most important figures whiny bitches? Anakin Skywalker, a hoe. A complete hoe.
Yeah, completely.
Luke Skywalker won't stop crying.
But when Luke put on the black in episode 6, though, he was a bad.
Now, when he turns into Darth Vader, the game changes, right? He becomes like the real one. But dude, had you noticed
There's a lot to unpack there.
Anakin and Luke are two absolute whores.
Like I feel like I'm more man than Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, you are. You're more man than.
I would have to
Do you think
that.
they did that intentionally to make it less intimidating? Like, oh, the average man can identify with this bitch?
Yeah, but isn't Anakin supposed to be all fucking special on his midichlorian levels and shit?
Dude, he's got so many midichlorians. He outsmarted that absolute bitch Weidel, that flying bug.
Hold on, let's go through this.
I'm so out of my depth right now on this Star Wars.
This will come out after the fight, so there's no way to get it up before then. But for 281, your thoughts on the main event? Who's going to win?
I mean, this is not timely content. Luke.
It's not. I just want to hear it for the record.
Okay, for the record.
I can ask.
This is a fascinating fight to me for so many reasons, and I mean, I could geek out about this fight forever. When you watch their kickboxing competitions, you have to keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, and I had not really put 2 and 2 together about this, and this is not, someone's going to turn this into a headline like Laura Sanko thinks. That's not an indication of my prediction. It's an interesting thing to take into consideration. When Alex Pereira fought Israel Adesanya, Izzy had, in Glory Kickboxing, Izzy had close to 100 kickboxing fights. Alex had around 20. So when you take into consideration that a relatively green Alex Pereira put on some really good performances, although I do actually think he lost the first one, but regardless, very close.
Competitive,
very competitive. When you think, man, his camp told me, because his coach, not Glover, of course, but Plinio Cruz, was my coach when I lived here in New York City.
No way.
So I called him up and I was like, bro, give me the scoop here. And he said, Laura, people don't understand how green Alex was when they first fought. Now, obviously, he's very green in MMA, and we can all agree that this is a different sport, and to me, range. Range is the key in this one. Izzy has got to keep this where he's comfortable in the range, but I think Alex is going to pressure him in a way that not many people have had the psychology to do.
Or have been ballsy enough but can sell it. I mean, if you cross that line against Izzy normally, he's going to counter you and make you pay, and that's why people don't tend to do that. Alex does seem to have this villain at the end of the video game type of feel to him that he's a motherfucker.
He is.
Guy, right?
He absolutely
I mean, you
is.
see that style and swag he's putting out. Poetan, right? Luke, I think that means stone hands.
Means still hands. All right, 135.
Yeah.
Let's assume Aljo's out till June, and I'm going to make something up here. UFC wants to create an interim title.
Okay.
They might not. But if they did, who should fight for it?
Oh, God, that's so difficult.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. It's an unforgiving
I don't
sport.
hate I'm going to get absolutely crucified if I put Sean O'Malley.
No, you're not.
No,
he's
that's
he's
the
fucking
pick.
#1 contender.
First of all,
Yeah.
that's the pick. Okay, so yeah.
I think it's Sean O'Malley. You can pick who he. I think it's a monster fight. Monster fight. You wouldn't go Cejudo though.
Is he really?
He's cringe.
Is he really? I love Henry. I actually, off camera.
I respect him. Yeah.
I love Henry. He is so different than his personality off camera. He's the greatest. But I guess is he coming back? For sure. Like, I know he's in the testing pool. I know, but
Seems like he. I think he probably would for the right fights.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to see him versus Sean, necessarily.
Why not?
Why don't you like
You
great
didn't.
fights?
Okay, so let's back up a step. You didn't find what Sean did against Petr Yan all that convincing?
Oh no, I was one of the few people who thought he won the fight. I had no problem with him winning that fight, largely because I have a deep understanding of judging now. But obviously, a very close fight. I guess I get more excited personally by Sean O'Malley Cheeto, and that's probably my bias toward like I want Cejudo to like actually be back before we start putting him in title pictures. But you're right. You make a great point. I would love that fight.
Okay, so then let me see here. At 185, if Izzy wins, he almost certainly goes to light heavyweight. He doesn't even know who else would be there. But if he loses, it creates an interesting kind of conversation. Do you do the rematch if Izzy loses because Izzy has been this undefeated champion, or do you go to someone else? Because if Robert Whittaker ends up beating Paulo Costa, dude, Robert Whittaker's a bad matchup
should go
for
right to the title
Poatan.
Yes.
Like, it's funny that like Izzy has 2 wins over Robert, but if it was Robert versus Alex, I would feel a lot more comfortable just picking Robert.
100%.
So what's the UFC going to do if that happens? If Izzy loses, what do you do?
I think you have to do a rematch. I think that's what they would do.
You said no.
No, I think you slide Robert Whittaker in there because then if he beats Pereira, the Robert Whittaker Adesanya trilogy suddenly has huge marketability and need, when right now I don't think you do need it. That would make you need it, and then an Adesanya Poatan rematch is always going to be their title or no title. You don't need a title. But, I'm just a scumbag. You know what I mean? A scumbag MMA media member, which, brings me to probably the hardest question I could produce right now that I don't know if you're going to answer it.
Go.
All right.
Bring it.
Luke said I wouldn't ask her this. It's a dick move. If Dana White calls you up and says, look, you've been doing great work, okay? But I'm launching.
I need you to do a better Dana impression.
This kid, hey, what's up, guys? No, I'm just kidding. He's like, I'm launching this slap dick league, and it's the biggest thing ever. It's going to take over the world, and I need you to be the face of it.
Slap dick? Like
I'm sorry,
dick slapping?
What's it called, guys? Do you know the title?
Slap fight.
Slap.
I think.
No, it's Dana White's, because it's just the worst name. Dana White's power slap. Like
okay, power slap. He's like, I need you to be the face of power slap. Like, you cannot be seen in public without a power slap t-shirt or sweatshirt on. You will be power slap. Your life is power slap. You tell him, like, hey, that's really nice of you at all, but that shit's going to fail, and I'm going after real fight calling. Okay, moving
I probably
forward.
wouldn't call him a failure in the conversation or predict
okay, at the
him as
very
a
least,
failure.
would you say,
I would
there's
say,
better ways to invest your money. There just is,
I would just say, Dana, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I think probably someone else would be better suited.
That was not an easy question. That was an honest rebuttal.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah. It's not my thing. But
it's not anybody's thing, but that's fine. Okay,
I'm
that's
also
fine,
not
right?
I'm not mad at. I don't know. I'm not as mad at it as some people are, but it's not my thing.
Yeah, I don't. I hate it, actually. Yeah. I think it's indefensible, but what are you going to do? All right, couple more headlines. Hey, what should Kayla Harrison do?
Oh, man.
It's not a UFC topic, but it is always kind of UFC related with her a little bit. What the fuck is she supposed to do?
I wish she would come here.
At 145?
Yes. I mean, we've got enough.
There's an answer that needs to happen first. They need to create the UFC women's heavyweight division, which is 135 to 155.
Yes.
That's his idea. I think it's actually not a bad idea.
And then Kayla comes in because she doesn't have to worry about cutting down, and anybody who is, knows that they're a flyweight or strawweight is not going to go up to 135, but everybody, 135 is, there's no division anyway, so you just make it one big thing.
I've brought that up before, not as specifically as you stated it, but the whole idea that there is no catch-all for these athletes that can't make 135, because let's be real, 145 is not a thriving division. So really, if you can't make 135, which I'm sorry, but like there are a lot of athletic women who can't make 135. That's not a very
Not
big
body shaming
weight.
here. That's reality.
That is reality. And
You
like,
already have a small pool to pull from to make competitive fights anyway.
yeah. So to have a catch-all where you could pull in some, because I remember Invicta had a handful of 55er fights. It's great stuff.
Okay, but with my romantic scenario, and by the way, people say, no way Cyborg would ever step foot in the UFC octagon again. I bet you they would for a women's heavyweight championship. That's me talking, not her. But here's the deal. How is that too much of an advantage for somebody like Kayla, who's basically a 55er, who said in the right circumstance she can make 45? If she's going in there against people that have, been bantamweights for most of their life, is that too much? Or is this just what heavyweight is? I mean, look at heavyweight in boxing or MMA.
Yeah.
If you're a small heavyweight and you're facing a super heavyweight, it's going to feel like 2 to 3 divisions apart at times. It's going to be massive,
I mean, that's the game you play in a catch-all division, and they would know that going in. And we, to your point, we see that sometimes in the men's heavyweight division where people look massively different than their opponents do. And
Randy Couture versus Brock Lesnar.
Sometimes we're surprised by it, and sometimes we're not.
That is very true. Okay.
You might be surprised.
What are you doing? You're doing Shop
It was
Bits
a
here?
comedy special.
You're doing
very-
Shop Bits
Showtime
here?
branded. I promote all the great Showtime shows. You might be surprised. Red Shoe Diaries, I
did like Red Shoe
Morning
Diaries
Combat
as
Strike
well,
Force
yeah.
Classics. That was another good show that we did during the pandemic. You got some TV money for that. Yeah,
Did get some TV money.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
We have to get out of here. So
we-
I'm sorry that you had to endure this, but I think it was wholesome. It was very wholesome.
No, I appreciate you guys having me.
what can you
in.
plug? What would you like to plug?
Well, I definitely want to plug first and foremost Alta, because I'm super passionate
Right.
about
That used to
Alta.
be called Wimp to Warrior.
Yes, rebrand.
Well, Alta is a better name. If I can
Way
be
better.
candid.
Didn't E. Casey Leydon, the great
Yes, he did.
photojournalist, do that? Yeah.
Yes. To me, I love being involved with them because to me, it's very similar to my journey into MMA. I did it for, psychological, mental health reasons, the training, and then I sort of just got sucked into fighting. But training MMA can be life-changing on so many levels, and to have them take it where the everyday guy, the accountant, whoever, can experience a little bit of what it's like and get that benefit of the sport. I love, love, love it. I love it.
What about your YouTube stuff, the one-on-one?
One-on-one, baby. Yeah.
Who produces that?
Bet365. So it's a sponsored channel. I have a deal with them, and
I couldn't tell if that was a UFC property or not.
they are. So I got the connection through the UFC. So they're the biggest betting partner of the UFC outside of the United States. In fact,
They're big in Europe, right?
outside of the United States, they are, by far, they dwarf every other
They're like
platform.
Hasselhoff in Germany.
They are like,
Pre or post burger?
I think they have like 70 million subscribers. It's a huge, I had no idea. I had no concept because they don't have a presence here. So, it came through the UFC, so that's why it has like a UFC feel to it. But thank goodness, because I can't handle the editing and you'd get nothing from
All right,
it.
I got one more question that Luke said, don't ask her. Do not fucking ask her if you have any respect for yourself. But it's
Can't wait.
This is almost certainly
can't
a
wait.
lie.
It's been a long debate between us. Look, some people have gone on record and make declarations, and it just becomes fact. Joanna Jędrzejczyk once said, Brett Okamoto is the
What the
best
fuck are
looking
we doing?
MMA journalist in the game today.
God.
I really like Brett, but should we update that?
This is so fucking awkward, Brian.
Yeah, this is
Why
the
would
worst.
you do that to me?
That was the point.
Why would you
I'm
do
sorry.
that to me?
Dude, he just rolls a fucking
we can-
grenade
look,
in the room and
no,
it's like,
so
just,
look,
one
what I
of you
do-
assholes jump on it.
I try to get my best pitch over the plate, but sometimes it misses, right? Sometimes it misses, yeah.
Let's just sit here and compare all our peers, shall we? Yeah. That won't get weird.
Yeah, I'm sure John has other shirts besides the blue one. I'm sure he does. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm partners with him now, so my career's going great.
Yeah, we had a good run,
Glad you're here, Brian.
Good run. Thank you, though. Thank you for this.
In all seriousness,
I love Brett. I love you, and I love you. Let's
Yeah,
leave
well,
it at
I'm
that.
really glad
Brett's
that.
handsome as shit.
Yeah,
to be
he is.
fair.
Certainly is.
You know what I mean?
Not hard
Why don't you go bang him? How about that? Scratch that
Can I
itch.
just be platonic friends with another male journalist?
Scratch that itch that you
He's
clearly
a great
have.
guy. I would love to get him on this show one day.
Yeah, and you could bang him right here. It'd be good.
Okay. All right.
All right. All right.
In that day.
On that note, so there's one-on-one on YouTube.
Yeah.
You'll be back on Contender Series.
I will.
When does the next season start?
I never know. Usually next summer.
Summer. There you go. And then
I'm on
maybe,
the desk
just
next
maybe,
week.
2023, Laura Sanko, UFC Fight Night
all.
commentator, right?
Come on, Brian. Bring it in.
Forget about just
Bring it in.
maybe. She's
Hey.
coming.
Bring it in. No, we're knocking.
you know, when you're coming on, you're coming on. She's going for it. She's making moves, and I don't have to wish you luck because I you know, from talking to you, I know what you're made of, and you're going after it, and I can appreciate your effort and your hustle in this. So great things to come.
I appreciate that.
They can't stop the hard work.
That's all right.
Congratulations.
I'll be on the desk next weekend, so look for that. Only up from there.
There she is, Laura Sanko, everyone. UFC pioneer.
Take that, Brett.
Oh my God.